Hi, everyone, and welcome to our CyberWise chat. It's been a bit since we've done one of these. I'm Diana Graver, author of Raising Humans in a Digital World and founder of CyberWise and CyberCivics. Here, as always, with Dr. Pamela Rutledge, I think you're on this side, right? Who is the director of the Media Psychology Research Center. And we're really excited to welcome our special guest today, Erin McNeil, who is the CEO and founder of Media Literacy Now. All right, so today we're going to be talking about a topic that Pam and I have wanted to address for a while. Are kids anxious or are they just unprepared? The state of digital and media literacy education. So unless you've been living under a rock, you've certainly heard that kids everywhere are suffering from a lot of anxiety. And this is, it's a big problem that we want to address. We don't want to make little of it. But from our perspective, a lot of the blame gets put on technology fairly or unfairly. So we want to talk about that today, because in many cases, the solution is simply to ban it, to ban social media, to ban cell phones. And while this might be an effective short-term solution, it does not address the larger problem. Technology is not going anywhere, folks. Social media is not going anywhere. Whether we like it or not, kids are going to use these things for their careers, for their social lives, for everything as they get older. So we cannot sweep it under the rug. We've got to address it. And that's where we think media literacy comes in. Some of the things Pam and I talk about in our spare time is,
Yes.
how much does tech really contribute to these problems? Are there ways that we can prepare kids to use technology in a way that's mindful, thoughtful, and not anxiety provoking? We think there is, and we think that's where media literacy comes in. So as we always do with these talks, we like to give you some grounding in research, which is why Pam is here. So Pam, can you give us a little background on what the research says?
Yeah, the really fascinating stuff. No, I think that what makes this topic hard is that it's not simple. And so it's very easy to have a bestseller and blame technology and tell people that they should, put down their phones. But that's just not realistic. And it also doesn't represent what we're seeing in the data. There's very small associations between technology use and mental health. Are there some? Yes, of course. But those are not the primary predictors of either adult or adolescent anxiety and depression. What are? The availability of social support, peer relationships, school and family stress. And if you ask kids, school stress is one of their major concerns into the stress that they're feeling. Parental mental health is a huge predictor of child anxiety and depression. So helping your child build emotional intelligence, resilience, and support are also strong predictors of positive well-being. So it's a very complicated thing, which makes it hard to say, no, just throw out your phone or don't throw out your phone. Those aren't the right solutions. It's also important to remember that parents, you play a huge role in how your kids think about technology. If you're scared of it and your kids want to use it, they're going to start modeling your behavior in terms of how they feel about it, which is going to make them more emotional in how they engage with it. But more importantly, it's going to make them much less likely to come to you if they run into a challenge or a problem, which is what we want to be as parents. We want to be there to problem solve, to backstop. And if you don't know what's going on because they're afraid they're going to get a long lecture about how the evils of social media, they're not going to come talk to you. So I think it's a big point, but as you say, Diana, let's be real, they're going to use it. So let's prepare them to use it.
Yeah, I love that research you dug up from Pew Internet about how kids actually feel about technology. Could you share that?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, there was a lot of questions, but the one I really liked was they asked kids, what percentage of kids think social media is really terrible in their lives? And the kids said, well, I think 32% of the kids said for other kids, it's a real problem. It's mostly negative. For me, only 9% of the kids thought it was their actual personal problem for themselves, which is a wonderful example of cognitive bias called third person effect, which is neither here nor there, but it just shows you how our perceptions of how other people are being affected are much different than the effects that we feel that we are having ourselves.
Right. I love that. So drum roll, this is where we bring Erin in to talk about solutions. Erin, before we get started, I don't think many people are familiar with what Media Literacy Now does. I am. You guys do some great work, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about your organization first.
Well, thanks, Diana. Media Literacy Now is an organization founded in 2013, and we're a national advocacy organization, and we're working to find the ways around the barriers to get media literacy education into the K-12 schools, K-12 and in all subject areas. So we work to raise awareness, and we especially work to support policymakers and advocates, and we're finding ways to support teachers in other ways as well now.
And you guys have a really awesome PSA, which I think we're going to try to play right now. If you're listening on the podcast, I think the words will tell you what this says. Let me see if I can do this without embarrassing myself. Okay, here we go. Okay.
Okay, Emily, here are the keys.
Understanding media is a bit like driving a car. There are things kids should know before heading out on their own, like how to tell if what they're seeing is true or safe, and understanding how messages affect them.
Mommy, I got the car started. How do I make it stop?
See if media literacy is required in your state schools at medialiteracynow.org.
So I love that. In a very short amount of time, it gives you an idea of what media literacy is. But just for the sake of being very thorough here, could you give us a definition of media literacy, Erin?
Sure. Yeah. And I think the PSA really speaks to what Pamela was saying about how, they need to have some tools to be prepared before they take these really useful, effective tools out into the world and put them to use. So media literacy is literacy for the 21st century, essentially. So it's the ability to decode the messages in all of the forms of media, and also to understand the systems in which they exist. So that addresses the issues of algorithms, for example. Why is this message showing up in front of me right now? And then an important part is to recognize the shaping effects of those messages on us as individuals, our thoughts and feelings and behaviors, and also on all of society. And then finally, to be able to participate in this global media environment, we need to be able to create media and use the tools, use the communications tools to create media thoughtfully and conscientiously.
And, in our title, we also threw in digital literacy because we use that term a lot more as a broad umbrella. And underneath it, we put media literacy, digital citizenship, information literacy. But frankly, these terms are used interchangeably. They all have the same objective: preparing children to use technology well. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So Erin, just kind of give us a big picture view of the state of media literacy education in terms of policy, which is what you work on.
All right. Yeah, we're looking at policy and looking at how to kind of, change the way the education systems are working so that we can be sure to fit these important skills into the classrooms and support the people who are in the classrooms trying to do that. So every year we publish a policy report that outlines the status. One thing that we have found is there has been significant progress among state level policymakers. And at this point, we're counting 21 state legislatures that have taken some kind of action. They set the direction for education in the state. And so this is an important progress. When we started, there were 3 states. So it's less than half, but it's, the numbers are going up every year.
I don't think anyone understands how much work this is. I've worked for a long time, and I know, the hundreds and hundreds of hours it must take to get just one state to make a change is pretty daunting.
We have
Well,
incredible.
and people should know that your report is available for them to look at on your website with a really wonderful graphic showing which states have things, and how far in the progress or what kind of things they're doing. So it's available to anyone who wants to go to medialiteracynow.org and take a look at, which is, I recommend that to all parents to just know. It's easy to say, oh, everyone's talking about it now with all this misinformation. We must be doing something. We're not doing nearly enough.
Yeah, because what's interesting about that is even when there's policies in place, how does that translate to the actual schools?
And that's a question for me. Uh,
Good luck with that one.
you know, there's many different ways that states are going about this, and how it translates to the schools is, you know, it depends on the state and the policy that's been enacted or suggested. So, you know, all of these states, there's 21 states, but they've gone in all different directions. And sometimes we're talking about the very first little step where they're bringing together a task force to make recommendations on how to, you know, overcome barriers. And the next step might be to actually pass a law that helps to overcome those barriers. For example, maybe teachers need professional development, or they need they need resources from the state. And so, you know, and sometimes it's really redirecting the resources of the state to media literacy and kind of backstopping the teachers that way.
So yesterday when we spoke, you had some really great examples of states doing some excellent work. Could you share those with us again?
So, yeah, there's one of the states that has been working on media literacy and how to overcome the barriers is Washington State on the West Coast. They've been making progress since 2016 when they first passed this bill that essentially created one of these task forces. And you think, okay, they wrote a study and they were going to put it on the shelf. Well, they didn't. They started to actually, you know, take action on those recommendations in the study over time. Eventually in 2019, they ensured that there was funding available for teacher training and for resource development. And then in 2021, they realized that, you know, a really important step is to continue to support the schools and the teachers. And they took a major step and put a media literacy and digital citizenship program supervisor position into that, you know, the state level Department of Education. It's called something else, OSPI, but that person now is there to, you know, take some of the things off the other supervisors' plates and recognize where, you know, where the teachers need support to make sure that this is happening in the classrooms.
Yeah, I think that's great.
You know, I'd like to just point out though, as we're worrying, that this is a really good example. They started in 2013. It took them 6 years to get to the really implementation. And then, you know, they're doing great things. They're making changes, but if you're in a state that hasn't started yet, your kid's going to be on Social Security if you wait for them. So
I know.
So, you know, that's why, you know, why we keep having these webinars is to try and convince people that it's important to get these skills in these kids' hands now.
Yeah. And I feel really fortunate, you know, gosh, we started cyber civics in 2011. That's around the time we're in. And we just created a media literacy curriculum and started making it available to schools, whether they have laws or not. And in the years since, gosh, how many years? It's been a lot of years. But so many schools we work with, they're not even aware what their legislation or laws are. And it's always because a well-meaning parent or a principal or a teacher comes to us and says, look, I have this problem, like, what do you have? And so we give them our tools, and all of a sudden, you know, these kids are media literate. And I think it's just so awesome when it comes up from the community. They don't wait for legislation. Legislation definitely helps, but we need to empower the schools and parents to actually start asking for this stuff, know where to get it, etc.
Yeah, there's certainly no reason to wait for policy. I mean, the policy supports the effort and supports the teachers and kind of gives them, in some ways, justification for what they're doing if they want to be teaching. It helps to remove some of those barriers that are coming from above, where, you know, whether it's the administration or the state that's telling them what to do. You know, if we have the state now turning around and saying, oh, you know, this is our priority, then that really helps a lot with the teachers. But, you know, the teachers and schools do not have to wait until there's some sort of a law in place at the state level.
Right.
Well, what I like about what both of you are doing is that you're really empowering. You aren't just teaching kids media or digital literacy. You're empowering the teachers and giving them the tools so that it isn't just an unknown burden, but they have the way to actually implement these things. And the other thing I really love about your goal, Erin, is that that you're really tackling this in an all subject kind of way. You're not saying we need this one little isolated thing over here. We need to understand how this kind of literacy is relevant to every topic that kids are taking on. So well done, you.
Yeah, so in that regard, could you kind of describe some of the materials you have on your website that teachers or parents could go to and use right away?
Well, sure. This is one of the things we came to realize is you can get a teacher, maybe even a whole school district to say, yeah, we're all in, but then no, now what? Now what do we do? So we wanted to see if we could support those teachers while they continue to advocate, and that is always needed. So support them with some immediate materials that they could immediately bring into their classroom. So we brought together a panel. We started with science, and we brought together a panel of educators to go through what they could find in terms of, science and media literacy curriculum or instructional materials, lesson plans, whatever they could find, and review it to see whether it was something that was workable, and then to categorize it into whether it's elementary, high school, whether it's biology, physics, general science. And so we've created a resource library for the science teachers as a start. We also have a toolkit for developing curriculum and a report that talks about how, how it's important to help students find trustworthy scientific information. And so these are all meant to support the teachers in both teaching and also advocating within their school districts. We're also now in the process of doing the same thing with health materials.
All those things that Erin mentioned, if you're registered for this webinar, we will send you an email tomorrow. It will have links to all of this stuff on our website. In addition to that, we are giving away, I think it's 4 now, 4 media literacy lessons from cyber civics, starting from 4th grade, going all the way up to 8th grade. I'm actually going to play you one of the little videos from the #1 lesson you're going to get. This is for the 4th and 5th graders. Let me do this again, make sure I can share my screen. Okay, here we go.
Whoa! It says right here that aliens just landed. I can't believe this. Turns out I really couldn't believe it because it wasn't true. Did you know that not everything you see online is true? While the internet is an awesome place to find information on just about anything, we still have to use our critical thinking skills to evaluate the information we come across online. That's because anyone can post anything on the internet. And unfortunately, not everyone who shares information is an expert. So one of the first things you can do when you find something online, like a post announcing something unbelievable, like an...
Stop that for a second. So you will get this lesson so you can watch the whole video, but I wanted to show you up to that point because, this is, we make this available to 4th and 5th grade, but we have some of our subscribing schools that use it all the way from 1st grade through 6th grade because it's very easy with our funny little owl to understand these topics. But what I really love is the lesson plan that goes with this one. And again, you'll be getting this, but so it goes on to tell the kids, like, what can you ask yourself if you see something that you might say, wow, are aliens really landing? And so we give them a little two articles. They both look real. One's real and one's not. And give the kids a little checklist. The author seems like an expert, yes or no. The article looks like it's from a recognized news organization, yes or no. The article includes evidence, and we talk about what evidence is, yes or no. Others are reporting the story too. You would have to ask your mom or dad if you could use the internet to do this one. Is the article true? So it's really simple. And it's like, it just shows you that you can start teaching these lessons very young. The other things you're going to get from us is we have a lesson on visual literacy, which is part of media literacy. Kids are just bombarded with visual images right now, cat memes, by the way. And so we want them to understand how visual media is created in the days of AI. This is so important right now for them to be able to decode visual media. So that's another lesson you'll be getting. I could go on and on.
Well, and the lessons are great. And I think, right now is a wonderful time. We're in a very heated political season, which means there's a lot of news. There's a lot of people calling each other out on what's real and what's not real. So it's a perfect opportunity to take what's in the news and have these discussions with your kid. And whether it's about politics or whether it's about a celebrity or some, that they're interested in, or find something that they're really engaged with, a TikTok news article, find something they're really engaged with and take them through these. Well, who posted this? Are they an expert? Is there other evidence? Those simple conversations, rather than going, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, which is of course something that parents wish they could say, but shouldn't. So it's such a great opportunity to take advantage of all of this information, to use it as your, as your text, rather than just worry about it and close it off. Because if you can't see it and evaluate it, if they haven't had a chance to poke holes in things, they're not going to really understand that process and why that's so important.
Right. And I think that's one thing that, when people go to your website, Erin, it's for schools primarily, correct? But what can parents do to help your cause or to help get media literacy in their own schools?
Well, we're an advocacy organization, so we're always seeking ways to help the advocates. So that's why we're here. One thing that we're encouraging everybody to do is, one, use our tools to reach out to their legislator. And just to say, this should be a priority. This addresses a lot of my concerns and your concerns. The legislators often are jumping from crisis to crisis, and they don't always think of media literacy the way we do as the solution. So just pointing that out, that if there's if we're worried about social media and cell phones in schools, maybe think about media literacy if you're writing a bill. And then beyond that, I think it's important to be looking at the local level, because that's where a lot of the times the decisions are made in this country. In most states, it really goes down to the most local level. So, start the conversation with whether it's with your teacher, if you're a teacher, with your administration. Parents can talk to the administration, and the school board is an important place where school policy is made in this country.
Yeah, I can't think of, I have so many examples of, our own curriculum is in schools because of parents. They call and they say, why isn't my school teaching this? And what do you have that I can show my principal? And they show the principal, and all the parents say, look, we want you to do this. And the principal's like, okay, we'll do it, And then it's easy for them because all this stuff is required under their standards. It aligns with so many subjects: English language arts, science, as Erin mentioned. We're doing a whole module right now that's a health curriculum that addresses sexting and AI and deep nudes and all the stuff that kids are dealing with. So, it kind of crosses the curricular spectrum. So, I don't see that there should be roadblocks. It just, as Erin mentioned, it requires conversation.
Yeah, and it's not an all or nothing. Parents rightfully get anxious about their kids, right? And you should know that being too restrictive hurts them, doesn't help them, right? Some restriction, really important. But think about this, right? Let's say you think it's a great idea to ban cell phones at your kid's school. A lot of arguments for that, right? They can be very distracting. And so we'll just set aside whether or not they're useful. What happens when the bell rings? Yeah. What happens when all that digital drama starts up and 24/7 on the internet, right? And whether you could make them, you can hide their phone, but they've got friends, they will get online. So give them the tools so that they're not just overwhelmed and worse when they engage unprepared, because you just give them all the support you can. And tools are the one thing, like Erin's video, teach them to drive.
Yeah. So Erin, what would be the top lessons that a parent should make sure their kids are getting?
I think it's important to sort of the big picture, that they can ask questions, that there's there's a system behind the messages, there's an algorithm, that they can be thinking about their own digital wellness. They can think about whether their media habits are healthy, and they can make decisions about that, and not just mindlessly scroll. and just to be, using some critical thinking skills, which is basically teaching them to ask questions. Where is this coming from? Who wants me to do this, and what do they want me to do? And I think just, starting there is so helpful.
And just by you saying that big picture, I'm like scrolling here. You mentioned 10 lessons in that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, they need lessons in balance and how they spend their time and how algorithms work, persuasive technology and how tech companies grab their attention and how can they understand what a scroll is doing and what questions should they ask? I mean, there's a curriculum right there. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we get stymied in like oh gosh, it's so daunting, but it's really not. These are simple lessons that kids should be getting. And if you can't get them in school, first of all, you should be call your school, get them in. But if not, look at Erin's website. On our website, we have tools for parents, and at least try to have these conversations with your own children.
And we all jumped into this big technology pool rapidly, right into the deep end. So being daunted and overwhelmed is something everyone faces. And so sometimes these lessons can be very helpful in, as Erin says, in our own use, thinking about, oh, why did I do that? And what is it about, this algorithm that keeps sucking me in? And so that we can start to develop some self-awareness. And not only will that improve your digital well-being, but it'll give you a lot more compassion for kids who are developmentally very socially focused. They do not have their prefrontal cortex fully grown in yet, so they're not very good at long-range planning. So their priorities is very short term. It makes sense that being on social media would be incredibly appealing. So compassion for that rather than blame is going to go a long way to helping you talk to your kids in a way that will give them these tools.
Right. So we like to be mindful of your time, and we try to keep these things to half an hour because you're all busy. But we do like to end with our top takeaways that you can think about when this is over. So Erin, what would be your top takeaways from today?
Okay, so, be an advocate and go to MediaLiteracyNow.org, hit the take action button and reach out to your legislator. Then use our PSA to start conversations with parents, teachers, and other policymakers in your life and in the community. But don't wait for some kind of new law or for somebody else to take action. Use our library and resources and find other ways to improve your own media literacy and to talk with your kids about what they're seeing and experiencing.
All
right, that's excellent. Pam, how about you?
Well, Erin stole a couple of my takeaways there. So I agree with Erin. Don't wait, right? And use online resources. Remember to talk early and often, right? Everybody's learning this stuff. Your kids, it's changing all the time. So keep those lines of conversation open so that you've got a good relationship. So when there are problems or questions that they'll come to you. And don't hesitate to use news stories, social media trends as points of discussion, not judgmentally, but just asking, why is this fun? Why is this interesting? What would happen if everybody did this? Just those kind of conversational things will tell you a lot about how your kids think about media, which will be very helpful in directing them and guiding them to healthy behaviors.
Okay, you took some of mine too. So I'm really, I'm not going to go last next time. Actually, I do have some different ones. So I would say number one thing that everyone can do, and I try to do this all the time, whatever you see online, if it seems even remotely suspicious, look at the author, for God's sake. That is so easy. A second grader can do this. See who wrote it. Are they an expert? Do they know what they're talking about? Did they give you evidence? Are they just trying to freak you out? Are they trying to get clickbait? So easy. So let's all practice doing that, and maybe that'll bring down the tone of misinformation online. Number two, if you're a parent, and you want your kids to learn this in school because it's a lot on you, call your school. Call us. Visit cybercivics.com, check out our curriculum. If you don't like our curriculum, I'll tell you gladly about others and point you in the right direction. We give workshops to teachers all the time. I just want kids to get these lessons in the classroom. And then finally, number three is, we're going to be more anxious if we make each other anxious. So let's think about solutions and how we can prepare our kids with tools to bring the anxiety level down for all of us. So Those were a little different.
No, that was excellent. Excellent.
All right. Well, Erin, I can't thank you enough for the work you've. I've known Erin a long time, and I know the amount of work she's been doing is just
Huge.
incredible. And it takes so long, and so we should all be grateful to her for her organization's work. And I think something she didn't ask, you can donate to them, by the way. If you don't, you're too embarrassed to ask, but I'm not embarrassed. You should donate to them. What they're doing, their work they're doing is really, really important. So if you don't like all the misinformation you see online, visit her organization tomorrow. So thank you, Erin. Really appreciate you being here. And for everyone else, our next topic is going to be one that you won't want to miss: AI and deep nudes. If you don't know what that is, don't Google it because it'll really freak you out. Just come to our and appropriately, it's on Halloween day. We're going to scare. I'm talking about bringing anxiety down, and here we go, right? But it is a really important topic because that schools are dealing with right now. So watch your email tomorrow. We'll tell you about that, and we'll give you your resources to help you know how to help your kids be media literate. So thank you both again so much for being here, and we'll see you all next time.
Erin, thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
You guys.